Welcome back to the Game Link podcast. I'm your host, Levy, and as always, I'm joined by my friend Elmer.
Well, howdy ho!
Today we're going to be talking about Halo again. This is our second episode of Halo Month. I apologize that there was a 2-week break in between. Elmer had plans for Mother's Day, and then last week I was sick as a dog, so...
Yeah, no, I mean, both of it kind of came out of nowhere for a surprise for both of us. All of a sudden, I'm 3 days before the recording session, and I just go, so we just remembered that Sunday is going to be Mother's Day. We're going to be busy. And Levy just sends a message to me going, yeah, that did come up. Have fun.
Yeah.
And then I just get a message out of the blue last Saturday that just goes, I'll keep you posted, but we might have another rain check on our hands. And I'm just like, ooh, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, so we're back for Halo. But before we get into Halo, how was your last couple weeks, Elmer?
Input adagio of strings, me staring into the middle distance, gunshots going off behind me, a couple of napalm fire strikes, and me just looking to the sky as I raise my arms up, and I'm about ready to crash. It's been a hell in a handbasket, to be completely honest with you.
Outside of work, what's been going on?
Oh, a combination of just about anything and everything. You know, just having to work on both of our vehicles, and both of us still having a couple hanging-ons here and there. Good old-fashioned, oh no, it's the, first cut of my lawn for spring. I better go do this, cut my lawn, and wow, I guess the mower height was perfect. A day later, no, the mower height wasn't perfect. Pull my mower blade off. Oh, that thing actually looks like a boat paddle with chips out of it, more than it actually looks like a lawnmower blade, so... that and just one of our busiest seasons ever at work. It's just an ongoing thing of me just coming home at the end of the day and going, well, I'm going to bed.
You didn't watch any good movies or anything like that?
Okay. Have I seen you since I've seen the newest Doctor Strange?
No.
It was okay.
The
most entertaining thing in that entire movie was I dropped the actual top from my hip flask in the first 30 seconds of the movie, and I had a small panic attack going, oh no, where did the top of my hip flask go? And do I have to chug this entire flask full of whiskey before the movie even starts? But no, apparently it fell just beneath my seat, and I was able to grab that, and then I went...
Nice.
And then I just went, oh, okay, now I just got to get excited for when the inevitable Bruce Campbell cameo happens.
See, I was just going to say, wasn't that directed by Sam Raimi?
And then it happened, and I went,
there was a Bruce Campbell cameo? Well, I suppose he was in the first Spider-Man, too.
He was also in the first Spider-Man 2. And he was also in the first Spider-Man 3, too.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I guess it is Sam Raimi, so that's cool.
But it's fine. It was fun. It was funny. We had a good time, but some of the love I'm hearing from some of these people out there, it's like, guys, come on, calm down. It's not the second coming of Christ. It's not Fury Road. It's not... I just had to say that just to make you mad. It's, I was about to say it's not Avatar, decent. And then I'm like, no, not even Avatar was that. And then I was gonna go, oh yeah, and then right before that, the trailer for the teaser trailer for Avatar 2 dropped, and we were sitting there, and all the teenagers in our theater are making jokes about, hey, look, it's the blue furry movie. So as a joke, I just shouted out at them, no, Smurfs 2 came out years ago. And all the people in the theater are like, what the fuck did that kid just say? I'm like, I'm gonna hide in my seat now.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, nothing too crazy really, or nothing too out of the ordinary has happened to me. And I've not really seen anything too great either, other than binge watching Avatar. So,
man, what did I do? So I got some smart locks for my house so that I can just touch my hand to the panel where my microchip is, and it just unlocks the door for me. It automatically locks and a bunch of cool stuff. So I'm really pumped about that.
Would that still work if your heart wasn't beating?
Yeah.
So literally, someone could saw your hand off and unlock your door.
They could just put my hand on a keychain like a rabbit's foot, and use it as a key.
Post-apocalypse, if somebody in the North Minneapolis area needs a place to squat, well, do we have the place for you?
God.
My apologies.
But yeah, I did that, so that's pretty cool. I also I got this. It's called the Flipper Zero. It's this tech multi-tool that it like reads and writes to like NFC chips and RFID, and it does like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi stuff, and it has all these functions, and it's really useful for me. So I can like program my chip with it. I can use it as a universal remote. I can use it as like a replacement key fob for my car and things like that. I ordered it 2 years ago and it finally came, so I'm super pumped about it.
And what does the actual program itself resemble via the LCD screen on the screen?
So it runs this AI that's just a dolphin Tamagotchi. If you don't read or write anything or do anything with it, it gets sad and upset. And then if you're doing a lot of stuff, reading, writing, programming things, hacking stuff, whatever, then it becomes extremely happy and it levels up. And as it levels up, it gains like more like cybernetic enhancements or whatever. So it's really kind of convenient because last week was it? Elmer and I were on Thor's Hour of Thunder podcast with our buddy Thor, and we were talking about Johnny Mnemonic, which the last quarter of that movie, he's like mind melding with this cybernetic dolphin, and it's all about how they like use their brains as like digital storage and stuff like that. So I was like, man, this is really kind of hitting home right now.
And as a side note as well, for all of our listening audience, that will be the closest thing we ever do to an episode on Deus Ex. So go over to our friend Thor's episode of Thor's Hour of Thunder on Johnny Mnemonic if you want to hear that.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great time. What else? I rewatched all of Video Game High School, which is a YouTube series, which actually came to Netflix, I think, for a time, created by Freddie Wong from 2012, I think. It's kind of cheesy, but just really good, like really charming. I rewatched all of it this last week, and yeah, it's still good. It still holds up, surprisingly. So check that out if you haven't.
So I'm curious, what exactly is it now?
So it's like kind of like a comedy, like somewhat drama, like show about these high school kids that live in a not too distant future where video games and video game related things like run the world. So there could be like a presidential debate going on, and they would interrupt it with the hot new snipes of the frag tournament or whatever, so it's these kids that go to a video game high school and have crazy, teenage drama struggles of, being on the different sports teams, which is just like FPS or, the racing team or whatever. It's really funny and really, really charming.
So is Ready Player One the sitcom?
Yeah, kind of.
Just hopefully not as bad as Ready Player One.
Yeah, not even close. Not even close to Ready Player One. I mean, like, the similar, I guess, concepts. But
IP the movie.
If you're familiar with Freddie Wong and like his visual effects stuff, it was basically just a show that gave him an excuse to do and learn new VFX things.
And from what I do know about this individual, I'm in jest a little bit when I refer to it as that, but just hearing him talk about that and just hearing that, and then also the topic for tonight, which I'll bring up later. That's why the only reason I've thought of Ready Player One and probably close to whenever since that movie came out. When did that movie come out?
Ready Player One was at 2018.
I hope you're right, because I don't remember when it came out. I just remember seeing it and going, "Oh yeah, that happened."
I think 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, because I saw it in 2019 and it was already out on Blu-ray. So
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to sideline you there by talking about Ready Player One, but that's the only reason I'm bringing up Ready Player One because, hey, listening audience, do you remember Ready Player One?
I didn't think it was all that bad. But yeah, anyway, that's what I've been up to. Man, I'm trying to think. Is there any hot gaming news that happened the last couple weeks? I'm sure there is. But I just can't.
Something got canceled. I remember hearing that.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, maybe it was Square Enix sold off its Montreal studio, including like Tomb Raider and other properties like that.
Thief, and then there was another one
Thief.
too. They were all old Eidos products. And what was it?
It was because they spent too much money investing in NFTs, and they weren't going to be able to make that back, and they have to make their investors happy. So
you were able to see that with a straight fucking face, and that's beautiful.
That's literally what it is. They spent too much money on NFTs. You didn't hear about that? They were they're planning all this NFT related stuff. They're like, oh, we're gonna put NFTs in this game, and we're gonna do this. Yeah, they fucked up. Like, if it wasn't for Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, Square would be hurting right now. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
Oh my god, that's beautiful. That is fucking beautiful. That might be one of the funniest fucking things. Also, Square Enix leading into our topic for tonight when it comes to Halo. Oh my god, that's fucking funny.
All right.
Oh shit, that's fucking funny.
So let's see. So tonight we're talking about Halo 2. And then we're going to be going over the third and fourth episodes of the Halo series on Paramount.
Originally, it was supposed to be 3, 4, and 5, but then we had car trouble. So my apologies on that, everybody.
Yep. So next week we'll do 5, 6, and 7, I think, if we can.
And then one of us is going to get appendicitis, and then the next week we just got to binge watch the entire season. And we're just going to be on here with ice packs and IVs and just being like, guys, just donate to the goddamn Patreon at this point.
I got bills. So yeah, Halo 2. I think I mentioned this the last episode, but Halo 2 was one of the games that we would go to our local game shop and pay by the hour to play Xbox Live Halo 2.
Oh, yeah.
So I really, I have fond, nostalgic memories of this game, for sure. And the weird thing is, Halo was never really planned to be more than just one game. But after the success of the first game, which sold more than 5 million copies, it pretty much guaranteed that they had to make a second one. Because what were they not gonna print money, basically? Like, come on. So and a lot of the developers had actually wanted to make a sequel that were built off of the scrapped ideas from the first game. So now with Microsoft behind them bankrolling them, it really gave them a lot more opportunity to be ambitious and try to do these new things. And the game designer stated that the team for this game tripled everything. They rebuilt the game engine, they changed the physics engine, and they even started prototyping advanced graphics systems like volumetric shadows and stuff like that. So they were really going all out. But unfortunately, things were kind of just a mess through the whole development process. They didn't really have any strong leadership. Jason Jones, who was the project lead, was so exhausted after the first game that he left Halo 2 right after it started so that he could work on another game that they were developing called Phoenix, which probably wasn't the best decision for him. Bungie's co-founder, Alex Seropian, also left the company around the same time. And one of the writers said that after that happened, they just kind of plowed ahead with no real direction, and a lot of them felt like they kind of bit off more than they could chew, but they had a contract with Microsoft now, so they better get working, right? So what they wanted to focus on for Halo 2 was the multiplayer, um, especially since in the first game they really had to cut back the multiplayer in order to like get the game out on time. Um, so in the first one, you could only play multiplayer via System Link because Xbox Live wasn't a thing yet. But now Xbox Live was coming out, and Microsoft wanted Halo 2 to release with Xbox Live, like right at the same time. Um, what they did was they looked at the small amount of people that were able to system link all their Xboxes together for the first Halo and have these 16 player matches. And they're like, man, they're having so much fun. Like, look at how much they're enjoying this. But, like, not everyone can do it because how are you going to get, 8 Xboxes in a room or whatever? Um, well, because they did split screen, right?
Yeah, 4-player.
Oh, yeah, 4-player, right? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
You're thinking of the PlayStation there, buddy.
so they wanted to bring that ability to everyone via Xbox Live. And because they wanted like larger maps with more players, the split screen multiplayer capabilities were almost cut because of what the Xbox could do. But luckily the designer of the game like successfully argued against the removal of the feature, since it was such a big part of the first game. Um, so he was put in charge of a team that was basically tasked with creating smaller multiplayer maps and modes so that more people could play on them, while the rest of the team was working on a game mode called Warfare mode. And this was a mode that they announced you'd be able to have team battles between Spartans and elites, and you would even be able to like call in airstrikes and things like that, which obviously never happened if you've played the game. But I still think the multiplayer was really ahead of its time, and they were really thinking of stuff that's still implemented in games today. So it really set a standard.
He who hath not played a round of Swords versus Shotties on the Foundry map, may he cast the first stone.
Oh, Google's listening. So in order to ship the game on time, Bungie began like bringing back their ambitions for the single and multiplayer modes of the game. All other Bungie projects, including Phoenix, that Jason Jones left to work on, they were all canceled, and the teams were folded into Halo 2 in order to complete the game on time. So they really wanted this to be a success. The campaign was completely rethought and remained unplayable for more than a year while the multiplayer was being developed. And ultimately, a third act of the game where Master Chief and the Arbiter come together on Earth to defeat the Prophets was cut out of the game entirely. They were hoping that the cliffhanger would be treated like the end of like the Empire Strikes Back or something, and that they could like get away with it, which I guess kind of worked, but I don't think people were that invested in the story. It was mostly about the multiplayer, right?
I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, playing that game, it did feel like it somewhat ended abruptly with where it was at, but at the same time, it's like, I think if they would have ended it with them actually defeating the Prophets and them trying to fight the Flood in the third game, that would have felt more like a worthy sequel, but...
Yeah, no, it's you can definitely tell it kind of just stops, right? They also had a bunch of planned vehicles that they had to cut. They had like different variants of the Warthog, and like I guess they had an all-terrain vehicle planned, which is I'm guessing the Mongoose, which they had to scrap. And then the single player mode came in trouble, where not really anything had been done with like the campaign or even like the warfare multiplayer mode. So eventually the entire warfare mode was cut, and the small team project of the designer making the smaller multiplayer maps was now um, like the main multiplayer mode of the game. So yeah, they kind of just really had to change everything like multiple times. It just sounded like a pain in the ass.
By you saying that, I now can remember like the first time I remember walking down the minuscule Microsoft aisle at Target back in like 2005 and seeing on the shelf there next to the copy of Halo 2, the copy of the Halo 2, map expansion pack
Oh, the
sitting right
DLC.
there. I remember looking at that and going, that just seems like a waste of money.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so one of the engineers said that for Halo 2, we had our sights set very high on networking. Going from having no internet multiplayer to developing a completely new online model was a big challenge to tackle, and all at once. As a result, we had to leave a lot of things undone in order to meet the ship date commitment that we made for our fans. Um, so it sounds like, I mean, they would have probably had a lot better multiplayer, even though it was still great. Like, man. Um, so outside of Bungie, the success of the first Halo game was actually causing a problem for the Halo 2 development. Because of the success of the Xbox platform, and pretty much everyone that had an Xbox was obsessed with Halo. Microsoft started pressuring Bungie to have the game ready to ship as a launch title for Xbox Live in 2002, which was barely more than a year after the first game released. Bungie told them it was impossible, and at one point, Microsoft executives had a vote on whether to force Bungie to ship an incomplete game or give them another year of development.
Anyone else getting Cyberpunk 2077 flashbacks right there?
Right. Well, luckily, the head of Microsoft Studios at the time, Ed Fries, walked out of the vote and threatened to resign to give Bungie extra time. So that's pretty nuts. But at the same time, I mean, like, missing the Xbox's last holiday season before the 360 came out wasn't really anything that they wanted to happen at all. So missing that ship date wasn't really an option. And so to hit this new deadline that they now have of November 2004, Bungie went into the quote mother of all crunches in order to finish the game. Oh boy, this just sounds awful.
So wait. When did the 360 launch? Was that 05 or 06?
It would have been '05.
Wow. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, a lot of people sacrificed in ways that you should never have to do for your job for this. You hear about crunch now, and it sounds terrible, but this sounds worse. The design lead, Paul Bertone, said he had to kennel his dog for nearly 3 months, and he slept in the office most of the time during the final days of the development. There was definitely a lack of polish near the end because they were on such a crunch cycle.
That explains the muddy textures on the brutes towards the end of that game. Holy shit.
Yeah, and like any like shortcomings that Halo 2 may have is probably because of this crunch period.
Laura Prepon just coming out of nowhere as a character and just going, is that Laura Prepon? What is Donna from That 70s Show doing in my video game?
Yeah, one of the developers described Halo 2's multiplayer as a pale shadow of what it should have been, which is sad. I mean, and it still was fucking awesome. Like, what the hell? Yeah, so like Halo 2, I mean, after all this, it still won multiple awards. From the Interactive Achievement Awards, including Console Game of the Year, FPS Game of the Year, Outstanding Achievement in Online Gameplay, outstanding achievement in sound design, in soundtrack, and like it received more than 38 individual awards. This game was the shit.
And you know what? To this day, it kind of still is.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely still playable. The controls are a little different, I guess you could say, but
I'd say more so the RAM speed to it. It just feels a little janky by then, but at the same time, it's got a similar control scheme to say like Call of Duty to the most part.
yeah, I mean it I think the controls of the first two Halos are a little weird because you had the white and black buttons, and now you have the bumpers instead. So it was just kind of this weird thing where it worked really well, but the controllers have changed a little bit since then.
That's a tech.
But yeah, that's what I got on the game. What a fucking shit show, dude. Man, I really feel bad for those for those guys. But holy hell, they still made a great game. Jeez.
I mean, definitely. I mean, to this day, I mean, when you talk about, the millennial generations, kind of video game parties, it's the two games that always come to mind are either Counter-Strike or fucking Halo 2.
Yep.
That's basically what you had. I mean, just because the Xbox was able to have 4 players per system compared to the PlayStation 2's, 2, or potentially be able to slap a multi-tap on there, but I mean, who the hell's family was able to afford a multi-tap on top of a PlayStation 2 along with 8 of their other friends who had the same setup?
Yeah, and the thing is, I have a multi-tap for the PS2 and for the PS1, but there's only 3 games that support it,
Exactly. I mean, when you talk about, our era and sitting down and having fun, multi-gaming kind of situation with a system link party, like I said, it's either Counter-Strike or the Halo franchise, and Halo 2 was kind of the first game to kind of give us the sense of that, Well, Halo 2 did have, or the first Halo had that bigger experience with the larger open maps and the ability to have so many different players. At the same time, when that game came out, the idea of, hell, even an Xbox Live was kind of a, it was on paper working, but no one had it.
Well, and that's the thing, you really got to give it to Microsoft here for not only creating a system that could graphically handle 4-player split screen and the controllers, but because of DirectX, it was easy to program for, a lot easier than PS2. So it was a lot easier to actually create the games for them and optimize it for the system. So I mean, I guess it kind of just makes sense that I would have more 4-player games than the PS2.
And on top of that, it still had your, good old-fashioned FPS camaraderie in terms of one person in one room screaming at another person in another because, that's bullshit, man! How many times did we experience that back in the day, though?
Too many.
I think Levy here has heard me exclaim every single insult known to man towards both him and his mother at this point. So.
Yeah, so what'd you research for this episode?
Well, in terms of Halo with filmmaking, I said that we'd kind of take it in order in terms of the timeline. And the first one I actually kind of talked about was the purchase of the Halo film rights by Sony last episode, and how the person that Sony had handpicked to actually work on that was our good friend Peter Jackson of the Lord of the Rings fame. And how he had brought it upon himself with Weta Workshop, his actual special effects company, and then underneath him, Weta Digital's Neil Blomkamp, who went on to do District 9 and stuff like that. They had been in the works of actively developing a Halo film, and which was actually why they did the Halo Halo 3 sort of live-action trailer / extended teaser for, what was it, Morningfall or something like that, where it's Halo or Master Chief smashing into Earth kind of thing. That was basically made as kind of a test run to see whether or not they would get the go-ahead by Microsoft as well as Sony to make the film. Anyway, that went under. They had to figure out what they were going to do, and Blomkamp ended up going and making District 9, reusing some of those film assets from Halo, and basically kind of starting his own career.
Yeah, I remember watching that trailer a lot. I think with you specifically too, and just like, man, this looks so cool.
And along that same time, they were still kind of workshopping that idea of whether or not they were going to do this. You know, if maybe some other company was going to pick up where, Jackson, who had basically left the project at that point. Originally, they were going to be making a sort of like prior to Telltale Games, they were going to do a sort of like multiple choice sort of player game, kind of like a Walking Dead or Wolf Among Us kind of gameplay. And it's
just like the interactive comic book style.
Yep.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
That was going to be called Halo Chronicles, and they're talking about how it's going to bring upon the new cinematic era of gaming kind of thing, which to a certain degree kind of is like
Until Dawn?
Yes, Until Dawn. I couldn't remember if it was Until Dawn or On to Dawn.
No, yeah, it was Until Dawn.
Kind of the same sort of idea was apparently what it sounded like, what they wanted to do with that. But that ended up getting shuffled to the wayside after, unfortunately, Halo ODST that came out, which was a lot of fun. That didn't perform as well as, say, Halo 3 did. That came out the year prior to it. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Anyway, around that film production, Halo Chronicles got canceled. Sony kind of got cold feet on that, and they kind of let it lapse. Around that same time, the unsung hero of video game film, person who's rarely ever even touched it, finally put his greasy little fingerprints on it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time we're going to involve cinema's possibly the closest thing we have to a patron saint right now, Steven Spielberg.
Oh boy, that would have been something.
Oh, get ready.
Oh boy.
So, as it turns out, Steven Spielberg has been a major fan as well as supporter of video games pretty much since the invention of video games as we know them. As everybody knows, the video game crash of 1982 and 83 was kind of the ultimate encapsulation of that crash back in 83 was the failure of the E.T. video game.
Yep.
Spielberg actually did have a hand in the development of that game.
Oh, yeah.
With the technology of that, he helped to shepherd just in terms of how you put the storyline of that into the technology of the era. And while that didn't work, he still had a hand in that. And from there, Spielberg himself has been a fan as well as a guiding hand in video games to this day, famously helping to work on the Medal of Honor franchise and even being having done a little bit of ghostwriting on a couple of the other games based on franchises that he's helped to work on.
Have you seen? It's a show on Netflix called High Score. I think it's like a docu-series about just like different eras in gaming, and I think there's like a whole episode about Steve Wozniak pitching his like E.T. gameplay to Steven Spielberg, and basically Spielberg just going like, yeah, sounds good, like whatever, go for it, which was a big mistake.
I mean, it was. I mean, there was a lot of cocaine going on in that part of the 1980s, but anyway, Spielberg, along with being a big fan of video games and helping to shepherd along a lot of them, around the same time that he was developing the original Medal of Honor series back in the 1990s, he actually teamed up with two other people. David Geffen, who was one of the original founders of, I think it was either Warner Records or the American subsidiary of Virgin Records. I think actually both.
Interesting.
As well as Jeffrey Katzenberger, a.k.a. one of the guys who basically helped to bring upon the Disney Renaissance with, say, I think, I remember this correct, he got fired from there by the living monster that is Michael Eisner. From the studio, he got fired around the same time as The Lion King, because there's a famous video of him bringing in this lion cub He's about the size of a Saint Bernard that is standing next to him, and he's going, "Yeah, you see, this is going to be Simba for this movie." He's showing off to the animators, and he gets close, and he reaches over to pet it, and the thing just grabs onto him, drags it forward, and starts gnawing on his leg, and you just see this, probably about what, 5'6", balding Jewish guy. He looks like a cross between David Cross and Wallace Shawn from The Princess Bride. So just imagine David Cross from Mr. Show going, "Inconceivable!" in a David Byrne suit from The Talking Heads, getting mauled by a lion, and it feels like a Mr. Show sketch. Anyway,
I love Mr. Show.
Anyway, the three of those guys, Geffen, Spielberg, and Katzenberger, went on to create a little studio that we know today as DreamWorks.
Huh.
And it was actually Shrek that Katzenberg had originally purchased for Disney and had been shopping around to try to get made by Disney, which Disney finally passed on. He was able to take that script with him over to DreamWorks and make DreamWorks the studio that they were until about 10 years ago.
So what does this have to do with Halo?
Well, anyway, so after shepherding for nearly 20 years, or I should say about 13 years over at DreamWorks, all the films and developments and whatnot by underneath Spielberg. Spielberg finally had enough, noticing that just the complete downturn in quality, as well as just sort of the, well, Shark Tale-ness, that everything was kind of happening within the studio. So he quit that and decided to re-team up with Paramount, which he had worked on originally with the Indiana Jones franchise. And around that same time, while shopping around trying to develop properties, he heard about two different things. One, that the book Ready Player One was being optioned for a film development.
Oh boy.
And two, Halo was being dropped by Sony. Steven Spielberg was within spitting distance of actually developing and doing his own Halo film.
Oh boy. You know, as crazy as that sounds, I think it would probably have been good. It probably would have been better than this series we're watching.
Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but let's put it this way. Around the same time that he was doing that, Spielberg was just finishing up on War Horse, which I still haven't seen. He was getting finished up on getting ready to do Bridge of Spies. And on top of that, he was also producing... What's the name of that movie? Super 8, as well as finishing up with the last of the Transformer franchise. While it sounds like he was interested in directing it, at the same time, I can really see him pulling a Cloverfield, which he was originally attached, doing as a producer on, which he was.
Oh, yeah.
I can really see him passing that on to somebody else, and I could easily have seen around that era Halo becoming basically as homogenized as the Transformers films are in our eyes today. Because I'm sorry, you can say what you like about Ready Player One. You and I kind of talked about that earlier. To me, Ready Player One, which there is a cameo by Master Chiefin.
Oh, yeah.
That movie feels like... It feels like a Family Guy parody episode of the fucking Transformer movies to me. I'm sorry.
You know... I'm a big Transformers fan, and you know this. But I'm not really a fan of the movies. I'm a fan of the cartoon series, which I know it doesn't make any sense because the cartoons are terrible. But I think I liked Ready Player One more than I liked the Transformers movies. And I didn't even really like Ready Player One, but I didn't think it was bad, really. Just a little cliche, maybe.
Yeah. Shots fired. Yeah, well. But anyway, we're going to save what developed next, because after that, basically a long hold-up kind of ended up with trying to get those films made, especially with the dipping in terms of box office performance throughout the United States. Or I should say the, well, more or less North America with the Transformer franchise. But yet still the booming international interest of it, which turns out Microsoft's best performing, I should say, regional area is still North America. Europe, Asia, Africa, as still as Southeast Asia and Oceania. and South America, there it's still PlayStation 2 everywhere else. Or
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
not PlayStation 2. Sorry, PlayStation and Sony everywhere else. Nintendo a little bit of the market share, but yeah, anytime they're trying to go for performance, it just kind of levels off, so to speak.
Yeah. Sony really knows.
Well, don't they have the international FIFA rights?
I think so.
That actually explains it in terms of why they're
Yeah.
able to sell so readily available.
Sony knows how to make money, even though it's frustrating sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ghostbusters.
but yeah, like I haven't owned an Xbox past the 360, and I don't feel like I've missed out on a damn thing. Because I have a PC and PlayStations.
But Gears of War 4.
Oh, who cares?
I know, I haven't played it either.
I played the first 3 and that was good enough. But yeah, so let's see. So we watched the third and fourth episode of the show, which I'm kind of getting the feeling like this show is just gonna turn into just a bunch of political,
Underpinnings?
yeah, just political drama stuff. Because nothing really happened. Like we sat and watched 2 hours of a TV show and nothing fucking happened.
Let's put it this way. We started talking about the different subgenres of music we've been getting into. My apologies. Levy had gone into detail about how he'd been going back into one of the classic sort of jazz fusion groups of the 1970s, and just kind of how they're still touring today, and it's pretty cool just to see the utilization of modern technology in terms of instrumentation and how that's reflected. And I was also talking about how I have been listening to Manowar again, which is one of the larger sort of epic metal, power metal bands, kind of the founding members of that, almost 40 years ago, and how Sabaton, who is the second highest selling Swedish rock group of all time, only behind ABBA, has done a cover of one of Manowar's greatest hits, Kingdom Come, and how that's been stuck in my head for the past 2 weeks. And we are in detail discussing, these different, just completely different subsects of music, and just how more interesting they are than, any other music today. And then it both hits us. Oh, wait, we're watching the Halo TV series, and we're talking about this bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, so like Halo, these episodes they had no action in them, but I guess there was like a little bit. So, the third episode starts out where it's like a flashback of I guess the human lady that's part of the Covenant. It's her as a kid.
She looks like the Fun Size Candy Bar version of Lady Gaga, if you need a mental representation.
Right. And she's with her other childhood friend, and they almost make us watch 2 12-year-olds kiss. But it's okay. It all turned out in the end because then shortly after that there was a child murder, so that kind of makes up for it.
It did it for someone somewhere. That's for sure.
So yeah, it basically just kind of explains the reason why she's part of the Covenant is because when she was a kid, some people killed her child friend, and then the Covenant killed them people and spared her life. So
also, them people also used basically the cross between a taser and a cattle prod to give her kind of like a brand / scarification burn on her back, and it's like, owie.
yeah, it was weird. So I mean, I guess that's like a neat little explanation for that. I guess low effort a little bit there, but then it cuts to her getting ready to leave to infiltrate the human population and get information about the artifact or whatever for the Covenant. And during this, they mention that she has gifts, but we literally don't learn anything about her gifts for the rest of these 2 episodes. So stay tuned for that, I guess.
And at one point, she lifts up her finger, and a laser blade comes out of it. And I'm just like, wait, is that one of her gifts, or is that just a killing device they installed in her finger?
Yeah, she has a fingernail plasma sword. Um, but yeah,
At that point, I'd just be using it to help to straighten my bangs. I mean, just to be really honest.
so yeah, then I guess cut to the UNSC. They're analyzing the artifact that Master Chef got in the first two episodes. And I guess you find out that it like predates both humans and Covenant. So like that's weird, but they have a hunch that it's either a weapon or is connected to a weapon of some sort. Um, Here's when they introduce Cortana, which
In
is
the way
like
they do it, which I made reference to earlier when I was referring to Final Fantasy there. When they first show the Flash clone of Dr. Halsey, it literally looks like graphics out of the Final Fantasy The Spirits Within movie, and I sat here squirming the entire time.
It's bad. They take this actress for Dr. Halsey and they basically just like smooth her skin, and it's like this weird like uncanny valley where it's like I don't know about that.
It's like if you opened up a picture of her in Photoshop and put on canvas mode. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, and then they download the brain of the Flash clone and put it into Master Chef. And then you see Cortana for the first time, like as the hologram, and it's even more uncanny valley.
As I leaned over to Levy at one point while we were watching it, and I actually asked him, "Now, does this look more or less unsettling than Alita Battle Angel?"
And I said more unsettling.
And I looked and I said, "Yeah, but
it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird, and I know like computer graphics ain't easy. I'm definitely not trying to say that, but good God, how many millions of dollars did they pump into that 3D model to have it end up looking like that?
Well, knowing this is produced around the same time that live action Fairly Odd Parents that is currently debuting on the Nickelodeon portion of Paramount Plus is going on, I can tell you right now, Paramount Plus is scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the production of these series.
Oh.
I leaned over to Levy at one point in this and I said, so at what point are we supposed to understand that, this is supposed to be the far-flung future and all of their actual clothing and products and everything is supposed to look as synthetic as all possible, so it's all man-made products, it's all polyester, plastic, fiberglass, and stuff like that. When are we supposed to believe that is where our technology is at and not looking at all of this and going, oh no, it's fiberglass, Party City.
Yeah, it's
and
just
Wish.
Cosplay. Well, and that's the thing too. Like stuff. all the vehicles and stuff, besides the spaceships that are CG, it's just like your average like Yamaha dirt bike with some fiberglass body over it, or some Chevy SUV with some LED lights and some fiberglass on it to make it geometrical. And it's like
the Warthog pulls up, and I literally look at you and go, "Oh look." It's the John Deere Gator.
And I mean, say what you will about the Warthog, but still better than the Polaris Slingshot.
Yeah. And as I looked at you earlier and said, dude, I pulled up to our local liquor store last week, and as I got out, parked right next to me was a Polaris Slingshot, and I audibly shuddered. And when the guy came walking out past me, holding his bottle of Kinky in one hand and Bloody Mary mix in the other, I just wanted to trip him and yell nerd.
But yeah, so they hook up the Flash clone and Master Chef to transfer the brain as Cortana into him or whatever, and like the technician that's doing this gets like super creepy. And he's like about to like I guess sexually assault this Flash clone, and then like the doctor walks in, so he stops. But it's like really unsettling, and then like throughout the rest of the episodes, like every time you see him, you're just like, man, what a creep.
And even before that, even before he was being creepy, I looked at this guy and I leaned over to Levy and I actually said, does he not look like the humor personification of an Amber Alert? And Can you imagine this guy being in casting and being like, your part is for the skeevy looking computer or tech or looking AI assistant and go, and this guy going, I got this. Now here's the scarier part. Who is the people underneath him that's like, I definitely got this, and they didn't get it?
Yeah, who knows?
So I feel bad for this actor. He does a good job of playing a skeevy sort of medical assistant, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you play this part a little too well.
Yeah. Yeah, so then they introduce Cortana, and they quickly, like, breeze over this fact that, like, the injection of Cortana into Master Chef's brain, which the game gave me the impression it was part of his suit or his helmet. But no, in this series, which is not canon, it's like an injection into his brain, and then there's also some technology along with that injection that allows Cortana to be like a hologram portrayed in life for other people to see. And they just quickly like mention one thing about it, and then they never talk about it again. It's really weird.
Oh, and also just as fast, they also mention in this episode that Commander Miranda Keyes, at this point in it, who famously comes into play in Halo 2 and Halo 3, who is the daughter of Captain Keyes from the first game, who is also in this series. But Miranda Keyes is the biological daughter of Dr. Halsey in this series. And as I did the most incredulous, I practically almost slapped my face and did the Home Alone face of, what? When I turned and looked at Levy here, and he just went, it's not canon, call me your tits.
Yeah, it's really hard to like know what parts of this series are canon and like what's not. And so it's like really hard not to like hear something interesting and being like, oh cool, because you don't know if it's just something they made up to be interesting or what. But anyway, I guess so after you're introduced to Cortana, it cuts to, I guess, the human girl that's part of the Covenant. She's on this big Covenant warship, traveling through space, and like sends out like an SOS call to this UNSC ship, being like, "Oh, all the Covenant like left in pods. Like I'm all alone. You need to save me. Help me. Help me." And she just ends up invading their ship and killing everyone, along with hunters who I guess at this point are just a bunch of worms crawling all over the place.
The best part is, right after, so she's on one end of a walkie-talkie and she's talking to people on a ship on another end of the walkie-talkie. And it cuts back to her and she looks over and she says in whatever Covenant language, "Are you ready?" And you see this boot step down. And in between the boot and an ankle piece, you see a bunch of worms squirming. And I get excited and I turn and I say to Archangel, "Oh shit, they're gonna put hunters in this." And I turn and look back, and within literally 5 seconds, Lebby goes, "I wonder if hunters are gonna be in this." And I go, "We just fucking saw 'em."
I didn't know that they were a colony of worms.
Which, no, you're fine. But literally, I just said that. You're just like, huh? But anyway, so then it shows the actual the military, sort of like the, what's the word I'm looking for? Security forces, as she comes over, this human liaison / dignitary for the Covenant, comes over to the human ship. The security forces are standing there. And 3/4 of them are holding, the different firearms from Halo. They've got the iconic battle rifle, the assault rifle. Then you've got, other guys standing there holding the shotgun. I think one guy had a sniper rifle standing there. You see those, you go, oh, that is Halo right there. And the main officer is standing there holding a handgun. And I saw what the handgun was, and I literally let out an audible groan and went, motherfucker.
It wasn't a Magnum.
It wasn't a goddamn Magnum. One of the most iconic pistols in all of gaming. The Halo Magnum, which they had in the first episode of this fucking series. And they didn't even give it to this actual captain of a ship in this game. They gave him a 6-hour P226, which, you know what? That is something that our current forces here in the United States actually use. It is still a very capable firearm. It is still a very capable weapon. Here's the thing, though. This is the 26th fucking century. This is be like if you made a game about Dirty Harry and gave him a fucking, 15th century matchlock revolver. It wouldn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like you have permission to go ahead and use the gun that everyone wants to see.
You've shown the gun that everyone's seen.
Yeah, it was weird. But yeah, so like I guess she kills everyone on this ship. She's looking for information.
Oh, she hentais them to death with with the hunter worms.
Yeah, tentacle porn. But yeah, so then it cuts back to Master Chef. He's talking to Cortana about how he's had memories and whatever, and he wants to remove his emotional suppressant little thing that's in his back so that he can feel things again. So he does that. He digs it out with a knife, and then he goes out into public and he listens to some people playing music, and he's like, wow, I can hear it like everyone else hears it now because I can feel. And then he turns around. He turns around and there's a dog, and then he's like, whoa. And it's just super cheesy. So he goes back on the ship and goes to the artifact room, touches the artifact again, and has visions of himself as a kid drawing a bunch of pictures and burying them in the backyard. And the pictures are of what looks to be another artifact. So now I guess that they know that there is another one.
And he had contact with them as a young child before he was even selected for the Spartan program.
Yeah, so he starts doing like research to figure out where he grew up, what he can remember, and turns out with Cortana's help, they find out that the planet he grew up on was wiped out by basically COVID. And at this point, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was wiped out by like some untreatable virus." And Elmer goes, "Yeah, kind of like Puerto Rico with COVID."
Without skipping a beat, yeah, no, kind of like what the United States did with Puerto Rico and COVID.
So yeah, then right before the end of the episode, you kind of get a little bit of story on the Kwan Ha, the girl that was saved by Master Chief in the first episode. She's still on this mining colony asteroid thing. She's trying to like get or steal a ship so that she can go to her home planet and try to save it, or like fight or something. And the guy there, like running the colony, that was friends with Master Chief, who also looks like Dave Chappelle.
Bokeem Woodbine does look way too closely like Dave Chappelle.
Like a buff Dave Chappelle. And I guess somehow the Kwan Ha convinces him to like fly her to her planet or something. These scenes are really boring. So we weren't really paying attention to them, but somehow she convinces him to do it. And so I think it was like once she said like, "Oh yeah, my family is rich and like I'll pay you." He's like, "Sweet, money, I'll bring you there," or whatever.
And he literally goes, "Well, let's put it this way: if you can't pay me, the bounty hunters that are looking for you sure as hell will."
Yep. So yeah, that's the end of episode 3. And then we start episode 4, which starts out extremely slow and boring.
I was gonna say even less happened in episode 4 than happened in episode 3.
Dude, episode 4, it was so boring. In the beginning of the episode, you see like a cut version of like one of the other Spartans who was spying on Master Chief when he dug out his little implant thing. She digs hers out too because she saw Master Chef do it and she wants feelings too. So right after she does that, she has feelings again, and So of course she decides to dye her hair pink. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not.
They joke about it in the show where later somebody notices that she dyed her hair pink and she actually says, "Oh, do you think I took it a touch too far?"
Yeah, that's like, what next? She sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow with the ukulele on YouTube. So yeah, you find out Master Chief is now on the planet where he grew up, looking for his old house and stuff like that. Because he thinks that his memory of burying something in his backyard was him burying the artifact. So they go and they find it, they dig it up, but it's just drawings of what he thinks is the artifact. And the scientist is right away like, well, let's just go back to the ship and analyze this. And he's like having all these memories and having feelings and stuff. So he wants to stay. So now that he can feel and have memories, he like uses Cortana to like help create what his house looked like when he was a kid. So then he has like a memory of himself as a kid, like finding the artifact, and so now he knows like where it is. But then he also has a memory of himself as a kid and Dr. Halsey like talking to him and being like, "I'll come and visit you again, but it's our secret." Like, so all of a sudden he's real butt mad because the doctor took away his childhood and he never realized it or something. I don't know. Either way, by the end of the episode, he does lead them to like the second artifact and they find it or whatever.
They did?
Yeah, they did. It was like this big pillar in the middle of the desert with a little artifact in it.
Oh yeah, and then at the end, towards the end of the episode, they said "sacred ring," and they went, "Wait, Halo?
Yeah.
Could that be a weapon?" It's like, oh no.
Yeah. So, okay, I guess we'll talk about Kwanha a little bit more. So she's on her home planet now with the ex-Spartan who looks like Dave Chappelle. She finds out that there's a bounty on her head. And I have a feeling that there's going to be some whole bullshit side story about her that's really boring and uninteresting. Because, like, let's face it, like, all we want is cool Spartan shit. We want guns and Master Chief and Halo stuff. And we're getting, like, a lot of this fourth episode was about Kwanha and whatever's going on. We were trying to pay attention, but we didn't. So I don't know how exactly it happened, but they're trying to leave her home planet and they can't for some reason. I don't know if somebody like stole the guy's ship or what happened. I don't know.
Let's put it this way. I made this joke earlier in the night. Look, when it came to the first Halo game, I should say for all of the Halo stuff, it was all very inspired by Aliens from 1986, the James Cameron film, which in and of itself was highly inspired by Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, which then was also later co-opted for the Starship Troopers by Paul Verhoeven, which is just one gigantic satire of the military-industrial complex. Now, if you actually look at the Halo game franchise, it's kind of scary in a way, just how much just sort of the satire of those games kind of lines up with, well, pretty much, kind of what was going on in American military at the time in terms of, the war in Iraq, the war against terror and stuff like that, and it's kind of our ever-changing shift in terms of how we actually were looking at the wars we were fighting. So it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. This is a war game that actually takes the satire of war and actually puts it against aliens kind of thing. It's like, that's kind of cool. This isn't a satire. This is more of just a parable about post-traumatic stress syndrome as well as the military-industrial complex, which takes all the fun out of this. And it's like, come on, guys. I don't need this to be fucking the Hurt Locker.
This story is... They're taking it too seriously, and it's not interesting enough to be taken this seriously.
This needs to be Rambo First Blood Part 2, not Hotel Rwanda.
Like, they could portray enough of what they're trying to portray and then still have, like, fun action things going on instead of just 3 whole hours of talking. like here is where we find out that like the scientists for the UNSC are like researching like the bodies of the dead elites and stuff like that, and looking at their weapons and things. And one of the Spartans like comes and like picks up a Covenant weapon and is like,
Needler.
yeah, talks about how badass the Needler is and how it works, and why the plasma rifle is so cool and stuff like that. And it's like that's the dialogue that's remotely interesting. You know, like I don't care about all the politics or whatever. You know.
And on top of that, it's like, oh, hey, cool, you're showing that you actually built the 3D model of a Needler. Dude, it'd be a lot more cooler if you actually showed someone using
he
a
shot
fucking
it,
Needler.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're just going over all this data that they've found out about the Covenant and the artifact and whatever. And somehow they have a recording of the Covenant talking about the artifact, and they hear the word for sacred ring, and immediately they're like, yeah, Halo. Like, it's a giant weapon in the sky. Like, we know everything about it because they said sacred ring. And it's like, for a show that does nothing but storytelling about boring shit, they really gloss over the important stuff. So I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, and that's really all that happens in the fourth episode. Like I think you see Master Chief's helmet twice in the entire episode.
And he's wearing it at this important, almost like RoboCop scene, like in the first RoboCop, where he ends up going back to his house that's on the market for sale, you know, that he shared with his family. They have that moment where Master Chief goes back to his original home, and he's reliving these moments in his mind, and it should have some sort of impactful moment, but unlike the original RoboCop, which actually is shot well and has compelling acting by Peter Weller's chin, and you can see his mouth moving, in this you have Pablo Schreiber, who, hey, trust me, my boyfriend. At the same time, he's wearing a gigantic cosplay-looking outfit, and he's basically miming his way through it. He looks like he's dancing to Mr. Roboto by fucking Styx through half this episode, and it's like I'm not getting any of that level of sincerity, nor pretty much pathos, which I really should be feeling in this.
Yeah, I have a feeling like this is gonna be one of those series that, you know, starts out with a bit of a climax, and then really just evens out until like the last 2 episodes or so, where it's just gonna get really interesting and then stop so that you want to watch a second season. And right now, I think we just happen to be in that really boring part.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm really hoping that, at least with, I mean, let's put it this way. We looked at one of the flight in space scenes with one of these spaceships. I leaned over to you and I said, oh, look, they dusted off the old Farscape graphics. So I really hope that that's what they're doing with this, is they're just kind of pacing themselves out and saving it for the end of the season. Because so far, I'm sorry, they are literally pulling in a Walking Dead season 2 right now.
Yeah, they're kind of shit in the bed. With that said, I guess we should get it over with. Was this part of the series a bop or a flop for you, Elmer?
I got to see a naked Pablo Schreiber. You better bet your ass it was still a bop.
You bet his ass it was a bop. Yeah, I'm gonna say it was a flop, but it has potential still. I'm still interested. I think they made some weird decisions, and they could have made this a lot more interesting, but at the end of the day, it's still Halo. There still seems like there's things happening that I want to learn about, but it's probably just going to take a couple more hours for me to figure it out. So I'm going to say flop for this one, but I'm hoping that it turns itself around with the finale and stuff.
I'm going to say, so far, I'm more compelled than I was with Castlevania. I know that to some that is heresy,
really?
But I will say that.
I
mean, 4 episodes in. 4 episodes in. Still compelling. Castlevania really ramped up towards the end of that first 7-season episode. Or 7-episode season.
Yeah.
7-season episode.
Yeah, I really did like Castlevania. But yeah, with that, I guess we will call it a night. Let's see. Let me see if I got anyone to raid. So if there's anyone here that wants to talk to us, stick around for the Q&A after the show. Otherwise, if you want to find us on YouTube, or you want to figure out where you can listen to us on other podcasting services, just go to gamelink.click. We're live as many Sundays in a row as we can on twitch.tv/Lebby. And yeah, we'll see you later. We'll do our Q&A. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week, and just to let you know, if you want to see my new bathroom art I just put up this past week, go to @BeersteinElmer on Instagram. Trust me when I say it will make you smile and happy as a clam. Stay safe, stay sexy, everybody.
All right. Bye.